From the outside, Queen Camilla's life appears picture perfect: a crown, castles, and a husband who is now the King of England. But behind the royal title and polished appearances lies a story filled with rejection, heartbreak, and the burden of being misunderstood for nearly half a century. This is the untold story of a woman who endured unimaginable public hatred, stood in the shadows of a legendary princess, and yet, somehow, survived it all. Camilla Rosemary Shand was born on July 17, 1947, in London, into a family of aristocratic charm and English grace. Her father, Major Bruce Shand, was a decorated war hero who had served in World War II, and her mother, Rosalind Cubitt, was the daughter of a wealthy landowner with connections to nobility. The Shand family wasn't royal, but they lived comfortably, in a grand country house filled with the laughter of children and the smell of fresh horses from the nearby stables. From a young age, Camilla wasn't like other girls. She wasn't obsessed with fairy tales or tiaras. She preferred muddy boots, animals, and adventure. Her father would say she had the courage of a soldier and the wit of an actress. She grew up strong-willed and curious, educated at some of Britain's most respected schools, including Queensgate School in London and later in Switzerland and France. Her friends described her as warm, confident, and always the one making everyone laugh. She wasn't the typical aristocratic debutante. She had a spark, a liveliness that drew people in. But beneath her confident smile was a girl longing for freedom, not fame. She never chased the spotlight, but destiny had a strange plan for her, one that would place her at the center of the world's harshest spotlight. In her early 20s, Camilla attended a polo match, and that's where her path crossed with a young Prince Charles. They shared a love for horses, the countryside, and Old English humor. Charles was instantly charmed. To him, Camilla wasn't intimidating or distant like so many royal acquaintances. She was real. She laughed at his jokes, teased him playfully, and listened to him like no one else ever did. For a while, their relationship was pure, secret, and joyful. They would sneak away to quiet corners, share letters, and talk for hours. But the royal system was unkind to emotions. The palace advisors whispered that Camilla wasn't appropriate for the future king. She was not of noble birth, not untouched by romance, and most importantly, not the kind of woman the monarchy wanted as queen. Under immense pressure, the young lovers were pulled apart. Camilla's heart broke, but she refused to crumble. In 1973, she married Andrew Parker Bowles, a respected military officer and a friend to many in royal circles. Charles, heartbroken himself, attended the wedding. Their lives went in different directions, but their hearts never truly let go. Years later, when Charles married Lady Diana Spencer, the world rejoiced. It was a royal fairy tale for the cameras, but behind closed doors, the emotional scars never healed. Charles and Camilla rekindled their friendship, and soon that friendship became love again. A love that would ignite one of the biggest scandals in British history. When Diana gave her shocking interview in 1995 and uttered the words, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," the world turned against Camilla. Overnight, she became Britain's most hated woman. Newspapers mocked her relentlessly. Strangers sent her hate mail. Protesters shouted her name in disgust. She couldn't walk through London without whispers following her. The entire nation had made up its mind. She was the villain who destroyed the fairy tale. Behind closed doors, Camilla's life collapsed. Her marriage to Andrew ended, her friendships faded, and even her family worried for her safety. She withdrew from the world, rarely appearing in public. Those close to her said she often sat alone in her home, crying over headlines that called her the most hated woman in Britain. But even through the tears, she never lashed out or sought pity. She simply stayed quiet and endured the storm. For years, she and Charles were forced to meet in secrecy. Their calls were monitored, their letters intercepted. Even the now infamous Camilla Gate phone call in 1993, a private moment leaked to the public, humiliated her beyond words. It was an invasion of her humanity. She was mocked mercilessly for something deeply personal, something that would haunt her reputation for decades. But through it all, she remained loyal. When Diana tragically died in 1997, Camilla grieved privately, knowing she could never show her sorrow publicly. The world wasn't ready to forgive her. For many, Diana's death sealed Camilla's role as the eternal outsider. But she never stopped trying to make amends, not with words, but with actions. Over the next decade, she dedicated herself to rebuilding her image. She threw herself into charity work, supporting causes few others would touch: domestic abuse survivors, literacy programs, and neglected animals. She met victims quietly, away from cameras, listening more than she spoke. And slowly, Britain began to see something new. A woman who wasn't a homewrecker, but a survivor. When she and Charles finally married in 2005, it wasn't a grand spectacle. There were no processions, no lavish gowns, no golden carriages. Just two people who had waited their entire lives to be together. For once, Camilla smiled without fear. It was simple, intimate, and real, everything her life had never been allowed to be. Years passed, and with them came new challenges. The public softened toward her, but the shadow of Diana never fully left. Every article, every comparison, every online comment, they reminded her that, to many, she would never be the people's queen. Still, she pressed on with quiet dignity, supporting Charles and fulfilling her royal duties. But inside, the toll was heavy. As she aged, her health began to waver. Friends said she often complained of fatigue and migraines, and the constant travel took its toll. Even as she smiled in public, she reportedly fought bouts of anxiety, afraid that the world would never truly forgive her. When Queen Elizabeth II passed away and Charles became king, Camilla was officially crowned queen consort. It should have been a moment of triumph, but she met it with quiet hesitation. The weight of the crown wasn't just symbolic, it carried decades of pain, judgment, and trauma. Behind her gentle wave during the coronation was a woman who had spent half her life fighting for the right to be loved. Today, at 78, Queen Camilla lives a life that looks peaceful, but peace doesn't erase the past. Behind palace walls, she spends her evenings in solitude, surrounded by her dogs and books. She enjoys quiet country walks, away from the flash of cameras. Her laughter, once vibrant, has grown softer with age. Time has healed some wounds, but not all. Those close to her say that she still carries guilt, not because of scandal, but because of the pain that history never lets her forget. Even now, her name trends on social media, not for her charitable work or her kindness, but for comparisons to ghosts of the past. Her marriage to King Charles, though strong, bears the silent weight of shared history. Both have faced illnesses, exhaustion, and the heavy burden of royal life. They are united by love but haunted by legacy, two people who finally found peace together after decades of being torn apart.